I'm Johannes Debus, music director of the Canadian Opera Company in Toronto. I've led the acclaimed CUC Orchestra for more than a decade. And I'd like to introduce you to some of my incredible colleagues. We begin our series with a look at La Traviata, one of Giuseppe Verdi's most celebrated and popular operas. It's based on Alexandre Dumas' novel La Dame aux Camélias, which later became the source material for many films, including Moulin Rouge. The opera is full of show-stopping arias, drama, and heartbreak. All the ingredients for an emotional roller coaster. The violin is featured at one of the most moving moments in the story. And today we're going to explore this with a longtime friend and colleague of mine, violinist and CUC concertmaster Marie Bérard. Marie, welcome.
Thank you.
It's unbelievable to be on that stage again with the auditorium in our back after 9 months. But here we are and we have some time to talk. First of all, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your career and your path to the violin, with the violin, and then maybe also to opera.
Yeah, it's a path that I think was just laid out in front of me, and I just followed it. It just seemed very natural. Come from a musical family. My parents are both musicians, and I had a friend who said, I've started violin lessons, and I thought, oh, that's cool. I'll do that.
You thought
too.
it's cool?
Yeah,
So
I don't know why.
That's great.
In retrospect, of course, I know that the violin was the right instrument for me, just by temperament and physically and all that. And then I just ended up in Toronto from the recommendation of someone who really strongly thought I should study with Mr. Zaffer at U of T. And it's really there that I played my first opera, Don Giovanni.
You remember that?
I remember
You remember
it.
the day
Absolutely.
of the performance?
It was incredible. The whole thing. I just fell in love with it.
So you got immediately the full experience.
Totally, yeah.
And sort of
Hooked for life.
Hooked for life.
Yes.
Exposed to the powers of this art form.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think we are working together since 10 years, 10 and a bit. It's really fantastic to have a collaborator in you, because I think the concertmaster is sort of one of the most important roles in an orchestra to, in a way, translate the conductor's ideas or help the conductor to translate the ideas into the orchestra, so that then we all act and play with one idea and thought. Today we're here to talk about one specific opera, and in this opera there's a very significant moment where the violin, your instrument, somehow is in the spotlight. And the opera is La Traviata by Giuseppe Verdi, probably one of his most celebrated operas, and for some good reasons, yeah. I would say. So we reach Act 3, the final act in this piece. We heard this incredible preludio one more time, the music that we heard at the very, very beginning of this opera, this mysterious, beautiful, silky string preludio, so to speak. And then we see Violetta, the main character, kind of alone with herself, sick, and somehow everything comes to a halt. A letter is delivered to her, and she's reading that letter. And then what happens while she's reading that letter? Could you describe a little bit that moment?
Well, the violin solo is the same music, although slower, and in a much darker key of G flat major, which is just so wonderful, the warmth of that key. And it is the music of in Violetta's aria in the first act. It's when Alfredo interrupts her, and so I think that as she's reading this letter, Verdi had in mind to remind her of that love that she had, but with a sad tinge, let's say.
And do you feel somehow emotionally connected to Violetta, who's reading the letter? And of course, I don't know, maybe you can share with us, you have played this opera so many times,
Yes,
and how this moment unfolds in the various productions you have done. Maybe the Violettas are reading the letter in different ways.
In the pit, you tend to not really look at the stage too much because it is actually a distraction from what we're doing, which is the music, you know. I'm always extremely envious of Violetta's, just strictly because I would love to be able to sing coloratura soprano. That I was not endowed with that capacity, unfortunately, but that is my relationship to all singers is always a complete awe, you know, of what they do and the power of their instrument to go directly to emotions because their instrument is a human being. It's very different from a violin where we have the same emotions, but they have to go through the wood and horsehair and all that.
Yeah, and yet the singing is kind of an ideal for you as an instrumentalist in a way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I find myself talking to my students so often about how to imitate a singer, especially when we're speaking of slides on the violin, which portamento they call for the voice.
You mean when you play with one finger across
well,
the
it can be
fingerboard?
different fingers, but there's a little bit of not a clean way between the two notes.
Yes.
And that our job on the violin for sure is to imitate the voice. That's what we do, and I've been blessed with being able to hear singing so often, so many days of the year, and it just really has helped my playing, I think.
But I can assure you that the singers who grace our stage are often commenting how blessed they feel that they get the sounds to hear that you provide as an orchestra.
Of course,
so,
that's a two-way street. Yeah.
It is, and it's quite wonderful. Marie, I think we should actually move on to some music. I have to say I have palpitations. My heart is really moving fast or faster than usual. It's breathtaking, actually.
This hall is so wonderful. The smallest sound is clear and it fills the hall, even though it's so large.
The sheer beauty of this, I call it an instrument itself, actually, our hall. I wanted to thank you, of course, for having this conversation here, to join us today, and to share with us your perspective on this moment, but also a bit more in general on what it's like to be in the opera environment.